Welcome to Ignite Your Business radio show. Light the match, throw some gasoline on and buckle up because we're about to take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Josh Wilhelm. You might be asking yourself, who is this Josh guy? What gives him the right to talk with all of these really successful business owners? Well, I'm the founder of a design and marketing agency in Southern California for the last 23 years, and I really get excited and fired up when I talk with small and medium-sized business owners about their journey, so let's get right to it. If you look up financial advisors for the middle class as a search word in our good old Google, the first article that comes up is called How to Find a Financial Advisor If You're Not Rich. It's not a shocker that this comes up, with more than 40% of Americans unable to sum up the money of liquid cash to get them through a basic and oftentimes relatively small emergency. Most that would be classified as middle class have written off financial planning as a service for the wealthy and rich. However, that's not the case. A financial plan is an evaluation of one's current income as it relates to your household expenditures and your financial goals. A strong financial plan takes you from simply paying your bills to paying yourself, as you follow the steps laid out by a qualified and successful money manager. Let me say that again, a qualified and successful money manager. While some people might find it intimidating to lay out their lives in such stark terms, with the numbers laid out before everyone to see, it's truly transformative to take a realistic look at your finances and map out a plan to move forward. That's where today's guest comes in, looking to change the stigma around financial services industry and make it more palatable and certainly attainable for the middle class investor. Our guest is passionate about helping everyone find financial success. The Ignite Your Business radio show is proud to welcome Matt Sapaula, founder and executive member of PHP Agency. Welcome, Matt, to the show.
Josh, how you doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. This is a nice start. You are one of the first episodes to be recording in the new year for us in season 2 of our show. So thank you so much for honoring us and being that coveted number 1 ranking position for the show this year. So thank you.
Man, honored to be here, man. You know, being a competitive guy, I love being at the top of that list, man. So great to be here.
I kind of figured you wouldn't shy away from the number 1 spot, really, of kind of most anything, unless it's a negative thing. Of course, we don't want to do that.
Sure.
All right. Well, first and foremost, we talked about this before, but anytime I talk with previous military, active duty veterans, doesn't really matter. I like to first start off by saying thank you for your service. And as I mentioned before to you, I also like to extend that thanks to your family, because it's not just the active duty or the veteran that served. Yeah, sure, they served, but it's also the family unit that goes along with it and that are connected to that serviceman or woman. So I thank you, and I thank your family.
Awesome, Josh. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for your support. Awesome.
And just to highlight maybe the obvious to you, but I wore your favorite color just for you.
Yes.
See, I came prepared. I came prepared for color matching. You know, I'm putting my shirt up to the screen going, yeah, that's pretty close. That's pretty close to his brand. Yeah, I'm good. I'm good to go. All right.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Let's get started. Let's have you start off by telling us a little bit more about yourself and what you do.
So as you mentioned earlier, I was in the Marine Corps for 8 years. I did 2 combat tours. I was stationed there in Southern California. They're right there at Marine Corps Air Station Tustin, right off the 5 off of Red Hill.
Right down the street
the big
from me.
campus, right?
Yes.
Is that no way?
No
way.
kidding. I'm dead serious. I live in between Tustin base and the old El Toro base.
El Toro base. So there was my other exit, Sand Canyon Road, right? Sand Canyon was my other exit. My son was actually born there off of the El Toro Hospital right there off of Sand Canyon Road. And so, make a long story short, I I needed to find a career because I was part of a deployable unit. And about 1 year left into my enlistment, I chose not to re-enlist. And I chose to transition out of the military, therefore picking up a new license, a new career in the insurance industry. Never thought I'd be involved in sales. Never thought I'd be a business person because I never thought I was good enough. I didn't have a college degree. Still don't have a college degree. I never thought I had any business experience, to boot. All I needed was a job to get me out of the military. And the first, folks that were giving me an opportunity was either the loan industry, the mortgage company across the base right there at Red Hill, or a financial services firm, which is actually located up in Anaheim. And I chose financial services. I asked them one question. I said, if I do this, when will I get paid? Well, the mortgage guy said, well, assuming things are good, we'll pay in 2 months. 2 months. I'm getting out in 30 days. Insurance person said, well, if you get this paid and the client gets approved, next week you get a paycheck. I'm like, I'm doing insurance. And so, and 22 years later, I'm still in this industry, obviously in different capacity, but I love this industry. It was a transition industry for me, and it's changed my life.
Well, thankfully, you did not interview for a newspaper delivery service, because I think that might be a little bit even faster that you would have gotten paid, and we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. So thankfully, you didn't do that interview. But yes, hey, I was going to ask you about that because it's such a fascinating transition that I see is going from a Marine in the United States Marine Corps to then a financial and insurance tycoon, appearing on MSN Money, Fox News Business, New York Times, just to name a few, and how you made that transition. Because, it's interesting to see your fraternity, the strong fraternity of brotherhood, sisterhood, that of military, armed forces, and veterans, how they transition from armed service then over to into running a business or their career. It's always a fascinating one. So I'm glad you share that with us, because that
Sure.
is definitely an interesting one. All right. So we talked a little bit about this. When I first met you, I'm like, PHP company, we are going to geek out. Because
Okay.
I know what PHP stands for. It's one of the coding languages. So you know what? We're going to geek out. And then I was quickly just, disappointed, because then it wasn't the software or anything to do with software. So then I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah. So your company, PHP, was founded with the goal, and I quote from your website too, bringing life insurance to multicultural middle-class America.
Yep.
What gaps did your team, and especially you being the starting entity of all of this, what gaps did you and your team see that led to the creation of this goal?
You said the word gap. Did you actually say the word gap?
I said the word gap only because I want to put it out there for people that don't understand where you're coming from and what you saw, and what really not just an opportunity. You saw a mission and a need to fulfill and help out. So that I call it the gap, because otherwise people are like, well, it doesn't sound like there's a need for it if Matt's here, because he's come in and saved everyone and saved the day.
It's funny that you mentioned the word gap, because that's actually one of our favorite words, gap. There is a wealth gap in America.
Yes, there is.
Right. And so the separation between the rich and the middle class and the poor is just getting broader and broader and broader. I actually have my original notes when I first started. It's in one of my binders here. My original notes from 1998, 1999 are actually still with me here. When I started my career, wanting something else. I didn't necessarily know at that time it was insurance,
right?
Until I found insurance, and I was like, wow, my dream finally fit a vehicle, a career that fit that ideal. And as I evolved inside the life insurance industry years later, somebody asked me, why do you do what you do? And I wouldn't be telling you the truth if I didn't say I wasn't in it for the money. I say I just need to make a salary. I was a single dad, I was divorced, and I just needed a job. But years into it, 3 years into it, I started making six figures. And somebody asked me, well, why do you do what you do? And I thought about it for a second, because I realized it's more than just a job. And I realized at that moment, what made me jump out of bed every morning was seeing the big eyes on people when we share with them the concepts that they can incorporate with their finances and some of the things that's out there that's not common knowledge in the financial in the financial conversations amongst your common Joes.
Sure.
And I said, man, I need to help more people, man. And that's why we decided to just go from an individual salesperson type model, just being a salesperson in the insurance industry, to then scaling and creating a model where we can recruit, train, and develop other people. So now we got agencies all across the country, coast to coast. We're in 49 states. We're licensed to do business in 49 states. We're not licensed in Montana yet. We need to find somebody full time in Montana. You know, who knows somebody in Helena, Montana? Let us know.
Sure. If someone's listening and you are en route to Montana, or you are already there and you're looking to not
Yes.
only make the big bucks, but also make an impact, not only in your own life and legacy for your family, but also that of others, you need to call Matt. That is a requirement. So,
Yeah.
do you feel that you have yet achieved that goal that you've set out to do? From, I mean, certainly you no
Yeah.
doubt you met the initial goal, which is just got to pay the bills. You're more than paying the bills right now, but so that piece is taken care of. But now you're after you did that bit of a, using military terminology, debrief. You did
Yeah.
that debrief. You get kind of gut check and go, oh, maybe there is something more to this. And then you set out on this mission. Do you feel that you've met that, or you still have a ways to go?
We got a long way to go. Now we've got a lot. We've got a long way, but it's still very far from where
Sure.
we envisioned. So we started with 66 guys in 2009, and today we have a little over 18,000 licensed agents across the country. So we have a vision going to 250 here in the next couple of years. We have a vision by 2029 of having 500,000 licensed agents. I know it sounds pretty lofty because there's only 400,000 or 500,000 in the entire industry today, but therein lies the problem. There is the gap.
Yep.
You know, a lot of people have not been aware of financial services, insurance, and basic financial 101 because the traditional financial services companies has gravitated towards the upper echelon of the income stratosphere, and they're only helping the top 10, 5, 1%
Right.
of America. You know, it's interesting to see me elevate into the top 5, 1% of America, but yet I still remember what it's like to be on the opposite side of money. And relating to somebody who's making 8, 9, 10, 15, 20, 25 bucks an hour, I think that's what makes us special because we've, you know, even though a lot of our guys we grew 43% during the pandemic of 2020. I mean, our guys made more money in 2020 than in 2019 in spite of just being on Zoom. And that's not unheard. That's unheard of inside at least the life insurance industry.
That's a great point that you point out, is having connection back to the roots, back to where you started from. That's the very reason that we call upon individuals like yourself to be on the show is, could we over time and putting it out there, reach out to the Warren Buffetts of the world? Sure. And eventually, after just keep bombarding them with inviting them on, maybe we get lucky and bring them on. But the problem with that is you have individuals that are so far disconnected from what it really means to just work your tail off and be there in and day out, grinding it out. As military common motto that I continually hear is embrace the suck. That is the mantra of also that of the entrepreneur. So I could definitely relate to that, and I appreciate you sharing that. So, what moment in your career would best exemplify your work towards this goal? And think back on the milestones, and this is a perfect opportunity because we just finished out the year for 2020, and these are normally the times that just before the year, just after the year, people are kind of doing their, as we said earlier, military terminology, debrief. How did the year go? But I want you to kind of take into consideration all the different timelines that got you to this point, and what's one of them that stands out to you that really exemplifies that's the banner year, or that's the banner time that really exemplifies and is a perfect poster child for working towards this goal? What time was that in your career, your life?
Anytime that my wife and I, well, before I got married to her in 2013, anytime that we've experienced, or I individually experienced pain, I had enough of it. I decided enough was enough. I put a flag in the ground and said, my family's not going to experience that ever again. That's anytime a great change happened in my life.
Yes.
So when I got out the military and I went through a divorce and I relocated back to Chicago. In my mind, I said I'm gonna prove her wrong. That's just my situation. I'm gonna prove her. I said you
Sure.
divorced the wrong guy, right? And today I proved her wrong. I proved her wrong. You know,
Look at me now. Look at me now. Is what...
and now our 25-year-old son, who was fed negative stuff, but I didn't want to destroy his image of his mom while he was growing up. Now that he sees the reality, he's like, Dad, you know, it wasn't entirely true what mom said. But in the meantime, I wasn't going to destroy his image of his mom until he became an adult and he was old enough to handle that conversation.
Boy, if that doesn't back up the statement and the saying that the truth will set you free, as they say. The truth will come out, and that means that it will open your eyes to what the true reality is.
Yeah.
So that's a really impactful point right there. So, all right, well, we just struck the match on our conversation with Matt from Money Smart Guy. When we come back from this short commercial break, we're going to throw some gasoline on our conversation and get into Matt's online empire secrets. Welcome back to Ignite Your Business Radio. I'm your host, Josh Wilhelm, and we're back with Matt Sapaula. And Matt, I have to apologize because I had the darnest time with your name. At first, all this time talking with our friends and all of our colleagues and staff here, I kept calling you Sapaula or something like that. I don't even know where I came up with that. So I had to do a quick Google and listen to a couple others mention your name, and I'm like, that makes a lot more sense now. So anyway.
That's why it's probably the Money Smart Guy. That's exactly
it's much
why.
easier. It's definitely much easier than that. Yeah, I'd recommend just doing a full blown name change altogether. You know, just go that route. So you are a chief distribution officer from PHP Agency, and we're excited to learn more about you, Matt, and your marketing strategies. So I gotta kind of put you on the hot seat for a second because I did some digging.
Okay.
And so as I did some digging on your just impressive footprint of technology out in the online world, I realized that I don't have Matt, the Money Smart Guy, following us back in our show as a follower on Instagram. So I'm like, you know what? I just got to put it in there to give him a little bit of crap on this because.
All right.
You know,
let's officially settle this out. Here you go. All right, I gotta find you guys. Boom!
There you go.
Problem solved. Problem solved. We got. All right, here we go.
The show right now. That was my only goal. That's all I needed to do. I'm kidding.
Love it. All
right. Well, and talking about that, you've been a busy guy, and that obviously is an understatement. Besides building this financial empire that you and your wife have grown together, really, both you and your agency have a very carefully and curated online presence. So just a few little things. Instagram, 370,000 followers. And I checked, they're not Russian purchased followers. So they are legitimate people. So let's start with Instagram. What are some of your tips? Just let them roll off. What are some of your tips for success when it comes to Instagram that you found personally that worked really well for you?
For marketing purposes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Majority of my profile is building the personal brand.
Right.
We have another one for the 7-Figure Squad and for PHP Agency. But the one I manage, myself, with the 370,000 followers you mentioned earlier, I handle that one 100%. So that's me responding, me engaging. It's not a bot.
Yep.
It's me taking time in addition to my cell phone, text messages. It's Instagram. And so people want to feel a personality behind a brand. I believe. By the way, I might be wrong on this type of stuff, and you're the expert in this area. But people want to feel that in spite of this large potential profile that they might perceive, They want to know that somebody's willing to reach back out to them. I've had people out there and say, Matt, I've gone through some tough times, and I understand. I said, DM me your info. I call them up and say, man, let me DoorDash you a meal. I said, don't put it on Instagram, don't put it out there, don't tag me in it. Just enjoy a meal, man. Just enjoy a meal. I'm the Money Smart Guy, and I think that plays a lot into humanizing what we do as a business. I put stuff on there about what my values and my principles are. I believe in marriage. I believe in being a family, and I believe in being a provider and a protector. And maybe my images and maybe those policies of the conservatives are off-putting to some people, but as they're storming the U.S. Capitol right now. But I put stuff out there, and I'm okay knowing that I might repel people that just don't like me.
Sure.
I'm okay with that. But on the flip side too, Josh, I'm also seeing that there's a large field that's just coming out the woodwork and engaging with me in a much deeper, level, which I appreciate. And it's like we know each other, and because they resonated with our message.
Well, no, I'll say this, and I love having fun with you, but putting the joking, the fun nature of it aside for a second, and just boiling it down in all sincerity, I know this to be true, exactly what you said. When we reached out to you for the show, I was shocked, honestly, that you were the one to respond, because I've talked with people that have less followers, and I'm going through somebody else to talk with in the end, the eventual person. And you're so true. I mean, I think, honestly, you are in a lot of ways the poster child for what should be done correctly for businesses and brands out there on Instagram, because of the fact that you do have that human element. And to touch on that a little bit too, same thing for us on the show. We have people sometimes they're a little concerned saying, hey, I'm a Christian, or I believe this, and I just want to make sure it's, is it okay if I mention this? I said, look, I would be doing a disservice, and I wouldn't be true to our audience. I wouldn't be true to myself if I had you hold back from, that's an element of your success. And if I say don't mention anything just because someone else might get their, feathers in a flurry, well, then I'm not doing justice to everybody else that doesn't get offended by that they want to know, okay, it's not just, I can't give you the KFC recipe and say, yeah, but you can't have one of the 12 spices. You can only have 11. It's not going to taste the same as KFC chicken. I mean, it's just the bottom line. So you need the full recipe in order to make the end result to be the same thing. So I don't hold anyone back. And I appreciate you sharing that. I appreciate you putting yourself out there. And I know this to be true of you, especially when it comes to social media. You do put your, you wear your heart. What you see is what you get with Matt. You don't, no fakeness, nothing of that nature. All right, so let's shift over to YouTube. Got 55,000 subscribers on YouTube. And again, I ask this because I know very well that different social platforms, and YouTube in some ways is a social platform. You're still communicating, but it has different impact. It takes a different way to communicate out through it. So what have you found when it comes to YouTube to help with your success?
How-tos and listicles. How to do this. 5 ways to do that. I started with vlogs. And I spent a year doing vlogs. Very, very little return. They didn't give a crap who I was. Right? But the moment I said, the 5 gotchas of money.
Yep.
The one we're about to produce, how to flip your $600 stimulus check into $1 million. Right? How I made $500 turned into $45 million in 12 years. Those are part of the. So it's kind of almost like a vlog / episode where I can only teach you what I've been through.
Sure.
Or what I'm experiencing, and what I'm finding that a lot of people are resonating with what I'm going through. Because again, I'm not talking from the position of hey, I'm the star. I'm operating from the position of I'm just a guide.
Yeah.
So, hey, if you want to go here, let me show you how to get there.
Yep.
I've been through it too as well, and I'm coming back to teach you. But if that's the direction you want to go, here's some things you need to know.
Well, and to add to that too, because I think a lot of people go, oh, I watch these YouTube videos. They're kind of feeling like bait and switch, like they're just giving a little bit, but to lure you in. And really, if you think about it, and there's direct science behind this, there's the psychology behind it. Our community, our just overall people these days are looking for information quick. They cannot sit for a long period of time and digest. You could give them the entire, say, look, sit down, kick your feet up, get some water, use a restroom, because I'm about to pour into you all of my knowledge in 8 hours straight. And you probably will only get one person that accidentally sat there and go, oh, I thought it was something else I was going to be watching, but no one's going to sit through that. So your bite-sized pieces that you're talking about, the tips, the tricks, kind of thing, they have to be intentionally, they're done that way to keep the attention span of those individuals, not for the purpose of, well, I do it to trick you into coming back. It's no, they can't handle any more than you're tossing out at them anyway. So I want to point that out, because a lot of people kind of bash YouTube going, yeah, but it doesn't, I always get roped into these how to do it like there's some magic recipe, and they never tell me the full story. It's like, yeah, but you couldn't handle the full story even if it was there given to you. So don't bash the creators of the content. All right, let's shift over to Facebook. You got 24,192 followers.
You're doing your homework, man. You're just doing your homework, huh?
I got to do my homework. I mean, I could get called out and be embarrassed, and then it's all over. All right, so you got over 24,000 followers on Facebook. What can you share with us that you found works really well in the Facebook arena?
Reactions and opinions.
Okay.
Because when I was posting content on how-to and listicles, I was trying to post the same content on YouTube that it was on Facebook. It really wasn't hanging. And I was just looking at my watch time here on YouTube. People are more willing to sit through a YouTube video and possibly take notes, not so much on Facebook.
Nope.
And so when I'm looking at my watch time, if you don't catch their attention in the first 15, 20 seconds, forget about it.
Yep.
I would even say sometimes even 6 to 10 seconds. If you learn anything from the Vine days, the attention span is 6 seconds, probably at most. So first 6 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, find a way to hook them and get them a reason to consider watching the rest of it. But opinions, reactions work really well for me. Pictures of picture posts where I may have a picture illustrating a how-to or listicle tips, right? And more people are sharing that. Now, I'm not the type of guy too either, Josh. I'm not paying to play. Facebook, I ain't paying to play, man. I ain't boosting posts, none of that stuff. So if I don't create good enough content where people want to share my stuff, that's where I got to still work on my game.
So I want to summarize with us highlighting these top-level social medias. The number one component to it is you've got to know your demographics, obviously. You got to know your audience, right? So all of these different platforms, they have different types of audiences to it. The reason that you don't get a lot of attention on the Facebook is probably because statistically, it's women, the high rate of women being on Facebook. They're usually 30 plus is usually the age range right now, and it's climbing still.
Wow.
And they're usually moms, they're busy. They don't have the time to sit there and watch through a video. So these different components play into, at the bottom line of it is you have to know your audience. The content that you put out has to speak to that audience and be received correctly, received well. So excellent. I appreciate you sharing those, because I think a lot of people just assume, like you said, you can't put the same content out for all the different platforms all at the same time and expect all of them to respond the same way. It's just not going to happen. So, all right. So while there's a lot of noteworthy posts that you put out, plenty, I mean, I could spend probably months going through and dissecting each one of them. But one that caught my attention, and you were talking a little bit about this before, and I'm glad you brought this up, but one that specifically caught my attention was that you got to interview Mad Dog Mattis.
Yeah.
That is an interesting one, to say the least. What was that like?
Well, first of all, I wanted to use a video for social media, but the booking agency says nope, not a former Secretary of Defense. He cannot have any interview for corporate events online, but he'll be happy to speak at your event. So, I take it as that. So I served under him during my Marine Corps times. It wasn't in Iraq and Afghanistan. I served under him during the Persian Gulf War when I was over there in 2000s. But his reputation, his demeanor, the way he went about business. He's not your typical drill instructor. You think of a general, you think somebody's in your face, blah 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 blah. He had a subtle style of saying something, and then the actual words that if you read it, like, did he just say that? Because he wouldn't be he wouldn't be profound in his delivery, just subtle. Listen, I love meeting people. Just have a plan to kill everybody that you meet. It's like, okay, but he's a student. He's a big reader. Read, voracious reader. He had a reading list for all of the officers in his command. He wanted them to read because he said, listen, if you don't read, you potentially might cost the lives of your Marines. So you better read tactics.
Do you chalk him up as one of the greats?
Oh yeah, for sure. When I'm looking at him, I would say of the modern era. Would it say history? Probably top 50. But when I'm thinking about generals of the last 50, 60 years, dating back to World War II, he's definitely my top 5.
Okay.
For sure.
All right. So let's shift a little bit. So that one's very relatable to you because they're veteran days and you can instantly connect with that one right off the bat. Let's shift a little bit more over to the Empire, the Tycoon, Matt. And you have on your Instagram and YouTube, you have a post about how you purchased a Rolls Royce for $26 a month. So as I'm doing this research, I talked to my wife and I go, he figured out a way to pay for a Rolls Royce for $26 a month.
Yeah.
I think we need to pay attention to this for a second. So that's a secret you need to share with us. How in the world did you do that?
I'm gonna give you guys some game. Book I picked up. It's a guy that actually helps me with my tax advice. Lower your tax. Notice how quickly I had it right here on my desk.
Yes.
We use this as a reference all the time. A book you should read every tax season is a book by Sandy Botkin, who's a CPA and attorney. And he used to be a former CPA, an attorney for the IRS.
Okay.
Okay. And he's got a book out there called Lower Your Taxes Big Time, because one of the biggest expenses that everybody has, they don't see, is really taxes. They think it's the mortgage.
Yep.
They think it's the car payment. No, you don't see it because it goes from gross pay to net pay.
Yep.
And by the time you don't see it, you already got whacked in taxes. You don't even realize it. But he's got a couple chapters there in the book. Chapter number 1: why you'd be brain dead not to start a home-based business. Why? Tax advantages. So if you just took advantage of the tax advantages, it would help you not need a second job. You'd actually start a side business, side hustle, which I think a lot of your listeners would appreciate. And then one of the chapters here, which is chapter 5, is how to turn your car into a tax deductible gold mine.
There we go.
There
we go. I thought for sure it was going to say how to turn your Rolls Royce into a tax deductible, and you were just following literally a blueprint. I know you are to a certain degree, but I just figured it was literal, and that you said, hey, he did it with the Rolls Royce. I'm going to go do it with the Rolls Royce. So
yeah. Catchy title, got you to watch it. You see, that's part of YouTube.
Absolutely. It caught my attention, and now I'm paying for it with my wife. She's wanting, so thank you for that, by the way. All right, so as we've discussed, you have an incredible online presence, and that certainly has helped provide this stage in which you're able to get your message out and to your followers. Social media aside, what steps do you think are important to take in a successful marketing strategy? If you could kind of sum it all up and say, hey, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day of if it's social media, if it's doing this, doing that. Really, what is one of the core components to the recipe that makes for a successful marketing strategy in your mind?
Gotcha. So I'm just talking from personal experience. This is not expert
Yes,
guidance here.
absolutely. No, absolutely.
So I'd say number one, be confident and clear about who you're talking to, who your audience is, and who your customer is, because there's a certain customer that buys insurance.
Sure.
There's a certain customer that considers going into business for themselves. There's a certain customer that wants to invest in themselves.
Yes.
So when I jot down those folks, I write down their intangible attributes, their tangible attributes, what potentially might be the resume, be what they're going through. And I realize that for me, I tend to resonate with people who are married, that have kids, and they're going through some form of deep financial pain.
Mm.
And so when we are creating content, we're providing free game, basically. We're providing some free solutions, and we're attempting to be as giving as possible. But, just the land of complexity that the financial services or the financial education is, people read, but they would like to hold somebody's hand or have somebody hold their hand
Sure.
through a process, right?
Yep.
To make sure that because so many people learn more from their bad experiences with money than their good. And
Yep.
so if I'm able to provide and shed light into, a large part of my YouTube channel is, okay, I'm doing this great, but here's who the biggest screw up is in all this. Me. I've been the biggest screw up. And
The
because
relatable factor.
right, but boom, yeah, exactly, back to that. So that'd probably be number two then, be the relatable factor that I am not the hero in this story. You're the hero, you, the viewer. You're the hero. I just happen to be pointing you in the right direction because I want you to be. And if you think that our company, our product or service can help you, well, amen.
Basically, what I'm hearing in you saying this and describing this is to say, I'm putting a realistic face to the representation of really you, the listener, or the person that's watching this. But I went through it, so you can relate to it. But instead of saying hypothetically, which never anyone can wrap their head around because it's too far out there, you can't connect to the story, right?
Yeah.
If you say hypothetically, there's a guy walking down the street, versus if you say, hey, a man in his 30s and with dark hair, blue jeans, green shirt, walking down the street, you instantly are filling that person
Yeah.
with someone that pops into your head that fills that spot.
Yeah.
So you're connecting the storyline with a real human being, which is all of those pieces coming together and creating that impactful marketing strategy, really.
Correct. And if you stick around long enough, let me show you some of the people that have results. Because don't let me just tell you about it. I'll have them talk about it.
Yep.
And I like to see that I show folks my journey as well as the people I'm hanging around with, because that's important to me. You are who you associate with. You are who you interview. You are the things that you talk about the most throughout the day. So that's a part of our strategy. The other strategy is, there's a saying out there: life gives to the givers, takes from the takers, and has a very accurate accounting system. So I have no problem giving. I mean, there's so much ways we can give through our businesses.
Yes.
It doesn't cost us anything.
Yep.
And I want to be able to educate our customers, our clients, our potential independent contractors that we eventually may train and develop, and we recruit, train, and develop. I want them to get a flavor of who we are, what we stand for. So by the time they call us, it's accelerated that conversation.
Yep.
It's like, hey man, I know what you stand for. Blah 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 blah. I saw your video about the Rolls Royce. I saw your video about this. Blah blah. Dude, I'm down.
Yep.
What's my next step? I like that. It's a much deeper conversation, and they feel to some extent they've already built a relationship.
Well, and your strategy that you talk about there with the giver's gain really is what it is. They've written books about it. They've studied the psychology of it, that the trust factor that's built into it, because when you're giving of your time and you're not asking for anything in immediate return for it, that you've built a rapport with people, you've built a relationship, a connection with people, so that when it's not, there's a difference in that I need to make very clear is those that give with the intent to gain versus those that give with knowing that I'm going to give of myself. It's going to come at some point.
Yeah.
I'm not going to demand of it to come
Yeah.
at a certain point, but it's going to come back to me at a certain point. So the misconception that business owners are expected to give of themselves completely and not be profitable is baloney. There is no one out there that should be a business owner that is giving of themselves and not being successful, because you have to pay the bills. You have to support your family. I talk about this all the time on the show. It's the whole oxygen methodology. You get on a plane, they don't say, hey, give it to the person next to you first. And then once they are okay, then give it back to yourself. They say, no, give it to yourself first, because you're of no help to anyone if you pass out and you're done. You're going down with the plane. There's nothing there. Call it a day. You're done. So it's the same thing. You have to be able to give yourself oxygen in order to help those around you. And that's what you've really found to do. Is you said, look, I can't preach from the rooftop to say you need to be successful when I myself am not successful. I mean, that's a hypocrite. You can't do that. So you've obviously found the strategy in being able to give, but knowing that at some point, I don't know when, I don't know if it's tomorrow, I don't know if it's a week from now, a month, year, 2, 5, 10, doesn't matter. At some point, it's going to come back around. And then I'm going to go, oh, yeah, I totally forgot about that. That's amazing. That's awesome. Okay, well, I'm still moving on. It doesn't change my day. It's, I'm going to keep moving.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we need to push pause on our conversation with you, Matt, just for a second. When we come back from a short commercial break, we're going to turn up the heat on our conversation and get into some business and operations talk. We'll be back after a quick commercial break. And we're back with Matt, Chief Distribution Officer from PHP Agency. Matt, you've built an incredibly unique business, and I know our listeners are eager to learn more. Let's dive right in. So we know that consistency is one of your keys to success, and I certainly wouldn't be doing my job, as we've talked about, if I didn't ask, what's your routine in the morning to get you set up to have a successful day?
Is I plan it the night before. So when I get up in the morning, I'm not thinking about what do I need to do today. It's planned from my 45 minutes with my cigar last night, going over my calendar and doing my own debrief with myself. My wife, she joins me. Babe, what happened? Da, 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 da. We kind of debrief through the day, and I forecast what I got to get done tomorrow. So therefore, when I wake up in the morning, I don't have a lot of decisions to make because I got 5 kids. I got to drop them off at school, just like every other parent has to, deal with that mess and deal with their school, their signatures, their school pictures, their projects, all these different things, right, for school. And then I got to get to the office here by 8:30. So it's less decisions I have to make in the morning, the better I'm at. So by the time I walk through the hallway here to get to my office, which is like for me, like an athlete walking through the tunnel. It's game time by the time I'm in my office. So my morning routine, before my kids wake up, I'm getting up 5:30 in the morning, hit the gym in the morning, get back around 7. And that's where we get the kids ready for school and get them out there by 8, breakfast and book bags and all that stuff. And here at the office by 8:30. So that would be my morning routine.
I want to point something out for just a minute with what you said, and what I picked up on is a couple components. One is that you have that moment of silence, meaning you have that moment within yourself that you get to break down the day as well as plan for the next day. But even that carries over into the next morning. What I did not hear from you, which is important to point out, is the first thing that I do when I wake up is I check my email and I check my Slack channel and I check this and I check that. It's like, no, actually what you do is you're in dad mode. You're in husband mode. You get up, you're taking care of getting the kids ready for school, packing their lunches, make sure they brush their teeth, getting out the door. But even that, well, trust me, I know this all too well as a father. That is one of the most chaotic times of the day, no doubt, no
Sure.
doubt. But from a business standpoint, it's that silence.
Yeah.
It's that being in the moment, being in really focused in that moment to be what's most important to you at that time, which is your family. And you're taking that time to connect, you're taking that time to be there so
Yeah.
that you don't look back 20 years from now and say, God, I wish I would have spent
Yeah.
more time. I wish I would have been more present. You're
Yeah.
making up for that time in that moment. I also want to point out something else. Obviously, this is the first part of the year. And so with it comes New Year's resolutions, right? This is the time everyone takes the time, go, oh man, and especially with COVID, I've added on the COVID 15 or COVID 19 for some. And so I got to get back into working out. I got to change some things in my life. And we all know all too well, we've all been there. Even
Yeah.
the successful and motivated Matt has been there at one point in your life, which is you set those goals for the new year.
Mhm.
And probably within a short period of time, statistically, like most, you're right back into your old ways, right? You don't hit that goal. So I want you to kind of share with us really what is on the top of your list for this year. What is the top of your list as you're one of those number one goals, whatever comes to your mind? It could be a family thing, it could be a business thing, it could be whatever. It rises right to the top and stands out to you as that beacon that says this is our number one goal internally,
Yeah.
and I want to share it. What is that goal for you?
So 6 times this year in 2021, we hit some goals. I'm taking my wife out to a quick vacation, not too far away.
Sure.
Yeah, but we're just going to be a tourist in the United States of America.
Nice.
We just want to tour. One of the larger ones we want to go to is I want to take her up to Yellowknife, Northern Territories in Canada, to see the Northern Lights. We want to see the Aurora Borealis.
Yep.
And that's from Chicago. That's 11 hours away. Before we plan it out, it's on Air Canada. It's $650 round trip ticket. $850 if it's $850 or $950 if it's first class. There's a lodge that we'd like to rent out there, assuming it's available after the turn of the year because of COVID. But there's just I already got the spot picked out. That's one of the first ones. But we want I want to be a tourist in the United States of America. There's so much good spots to visit that a lot of people don't pay attention to in our own country. So that's what we want to do here in 2021. So we have six major goals, and every 2 months we're going to go a quick 1 day, 2 day, 3 day trip. We're back, and that's just my wife and I.
I am shocked that a money guy knows the numbers and the cost of a flight so quickly that he can grab it out of midair, it seems, and know with precision what it's going to cost. I joke, of course, because that it's your business to know numbers. So I understand that. I want to add something to this. I did some research recently, and I kind of find it interesting that you break down over the years and you kind of do, as we've been referencing at the debrief. You look at times that you were successful, you weren't successful, you learn from the mistakes, try to capitalize, of course, on the successes and those kind of things. When it comes to setting really and establishing goals for the year, New Year's resolution, as some refer to it as, that I found that there's three components that make them actually obtainable. One is that it's not just saying that, hey, I'm going to lose weight. Okay, well, be more definitive. How much weight are you going to lose, and by what date? So just like you said, hey, every 2 months we're going to travel. And it's not just, hey, we're going to travel. We already have mapped out where we're going to travel and where we're going to go, and it's every 2 months. So you have that part checkbox. You're done on that one. Next part is, as you're going through it, figuring out what do you need to do to work yourself backwards to get to that goal. Walk the steps backwards. Go, okay, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in a year. Okay, well, let's break that down on a monthly, a weekly, quarterly, and so on and so forth, so that you are able to do it. The third component that I think a lot of these self-called gurus out there that break down the mindset and how it all works is the debrief. The debrief, and not the debrief as you're about to supposedly cross the finish line, but every step of the way on a weekly, a monthly basis, break it down for yourself and go, hey, am I on track? Am I on course to hit my target? Whatever my goal is, am I still on track? If I'm not, we got to do some course corrections here. We got to make some adjustments here to get me back on track. Because you know what? Just as we saw in 2020, a big pebble that was in everyone's path that all their goals got disrupted was something called COVID. Yep, and it disrupted everybody's life. Well, that's the time that the smart ones like you and a lot of successful business owners took the time to stop and go, what do we need to do differently here? We can't just keep doing the things we used to be doing. So I wanted to point that out because I think this is the time to share that with people, that you can't just keep doing what you're doing, because we all know what that definition is, where you keep getting the same results.
Yeah.
It's insanity. I mean, you keep doing the same thing and you expect different results. It's not going to happen. All right. So your company is called PHP, or People Helping People.
Right.
I think I know the answer to this and just what we've covered, but why that name?
It's we kick around a couple other names, but we're like, hey, we're amongst you, we're for you, we're by you, we're next to you. We're just people. We're nobody special. We're just a guide to get you to where you want to go, and we just want to help you. So we're just people that just, we're not kings and queens and royalty. We're just people in your neighborhood that you grew up with, and that's the nature of the insurance industry. We're just people too, just like yourself, and we just want to share with you what we know about money and help you get on the heads, because there's only a certain amount of time frame you want to be in this neighborhood before you want to move on to the next, and there's only so much time you want to spend here, so therefore you want to send your kids to the best schools, and so those type of things. That's why people helping people.
You just you kind of ruined the day for some people on our team that had staged bets on what your response was going to be for that question. So I just you let a few people down, but I won in this, so that's all that really matters anyway. Who came up with that name? That I want to know that part. Who was the one that kind of threw that suggestion in the ring to say, here's some possibilities, but here's my suggestion?
Yeah, it was supposed to be the Story Builders, but by the way, our CEO founder Patrick Bet-David came up with that name. So he, again, military background, refugee, war refugee from Iran. Bet-David is the Christian side of the Iran immigrants, and he grew up in Glendale, served in the Army. After that, went to go work for Transamerica, a 9-10-01. Jeez. A day before 9/11, gets involved in the financial service industry. And anyway, he finds himself, instead of the Wall Street side of things, he finds himself on the insurance side of things. And a pastor had connected us. He said, you need to meet the Iranian version of you. And he tells him, he says, you need to meet the Filipino version of you, which is a church right up there in Sherman Oaks called Shepherd of the Hills Church. And my sister actually worked there as a director of ministry. And she asked me to come out to her Sunday service, and I went out there, and that's where the pass on, hey, you need to meet this person, from the pastor had taken place.
Wow. Well, the interesting thing about that too is, he's able to hang his hat on. Yeah, I started the day in the financial world, and I'm still successful, even though it was the day before 9/11. You're gonna have personally, you have impacted those that are able to say the same thing from 2020, to say, hey, I started my empire the year that the big COVID hit, the big C hit, and I still started my business, and here I am 10 years later, and I'm a success. So you get a part of that. You get to be part of someone else's story right there. I think that's something that's impressive.
Let's write that one down, man. Yep.
On your website, your company advertises breaking the record for the most people playing checkers simultaneously. Okay.
Yeah.
I would have chalked you up as a chess guy personally, but okay, there's something about checkers as well. It's got game, it's got strategy. It still has it. But why checkers? Why a world record?
We just want PR. We just want to get out there and say, because you're a small company, you're just looking for something to be in the news about.
Yeah.
we did a flash mob in Las Vegas. I mean, you're looking just to get people to pay attention to you, man. So,
See,
yeah.
that's an advertising strategy right there. Just,
Yes.
you know what? Take Monopoly and have 20 different people playing Monopoly all at the same time, and you'll get some coverage on this, and it'll catapult you to financial guru in just a matter of years. That's the recipe right there. We just unearthed the recipe. Beat Matt's record, the world record for how many people are playing checkers at the same time, and you will surpass Matt and all of his wealth and words of wisdom. So there you go. That we can just mic drop moment right there and move on. Yeah, exactly. So you've had some major guests at your conferences.
Mm-hmm.
I am dying to find out who was your favorite and why.
Kobe
And by
Bryant.
the way, just as a caveat, we will edit out the name so that you don't offend anyone that you don't select on that. We'll cut them out a little bit and just kind of bleep it through almost like it's a cuss word. And then that way you're safe. You know, you're within a safe environment here.
Well, I don't think anybody will have a problem with his name. I mean, it's a legendary name. God bless his soul and his daughter's soul. But it was Kobe Bryant, hands down.
Ah, yes.
It's
Yes.
Kobe Bryant, down. You know,
I
and
saw that picture the other day. I was looking at it and I'm like, man, that's a moment. That's one of those ones, especially with a legend like that leaves too early, you know, and that you are able to look back on that time and go, especially kids, family, you don't know how lucky you were that you got to be around really greatness. And it's greatness on multiple levels. I know everyone talks about his greatness from no doubt, a basketball legend in his own right. Absolutely. But it's come out more and more. And I think a lot of people that knew him very closely have shared their experiences with him. But his work ethic was just amazing. I mean, like Superman is, as you can see up here on the wall, that's my dude. That's my brother, you know, but he is really the poster child, the human version, the real person out there as that Superman. So that makes complete sense.
He said something pretty profound, which I think it'll relate to a lot of your listeners and your audiences. He said, listen, I'm an athlete. My job is to be an athlete. So it's easy for me to have this work ethic because I'm paid to be an athlete. The challenge I had with many guys, and I was 17 years old when I came in the league. The problem I had with many of the guys that were there before me, they had so many other things going on that kept them from the game. There's guys more talented than me, guys that jumped higher than me, the guys that shot the ball better than me, but I worked at my game more than they did because they had other distractions. And if in this phase of your life, it's not going to last forever.
Sure.
In this phase of your life, you're paid to be a professional athlete, that money that can pay you for generations, and you squander it because you want to go out on Sunday nights. He'd tell me stories about him going out, driving around USC, and him coming from Philly, he come from overseas, and he's a 17, 18, 19-year-old. I want to go party, I want to go hang out, but I'm a professional athlete.
It's uncanny, and it's understandably why he was compared and has been compared to Jordan, because the same thing. Jordan looked at it as like, look, I only got so much time in this. And even Jordan said, the recent series that came out about him very early on, he was not the top player. All of his coaches said he was not even in the realm of us thinking he would ever move on past high school or anything else. But he worked his tail off to get to where he was. All right, so let's touch on, because I know this was also very important to Kobe, is family. We see your children featured in a lot of your posts. And that's a good thing. I don't say that as a bad thing, because it's I understand from what one of your answers before was having that human component in it. But I want to hear it in your own words. Are they involved in your business at all? And do you plan, or do they even plan to be?
That's how we legally and ethically pay them a salary. They're part of my marketing material. They're my models.
There is a cute factor and always involved with kids. I mean, that is just, there you go. They lower your taxes. It says use your children as models for your business.
Sure, and they come to our conferences. They love our team. They come to the office. They say hello, everybody. They're brand ambassadors. Brand ambassadors, right? Because some businesses hire girls in bikinis and whatever. I happen to hire my kids, right? They're my brand ambassadors.
You know what? There's something to say with that. I tell people, I say, anytime they see my kids come around, I'm like, oh, that's our youngest interns. So just ignore them. They sometimes get out of control, but they're just our interns. So they're here for something.
Yeah,
But no, in seriousness, you feature your kids, and I know from the business side of that, but you and I have talked a little bit about this before. You're a busy guy. You've got things going on, and we touched on it a little bit with the whole morning routine that you have with your family and your kids. But certainly, look, kids don't get put on pause like a video game and then come back to life after the next morning. They're running a million miles a minute all throughout the day. So how do you do the whole balancing act with having a successful empire like you do, and then still having time to be dad, still having time to be husband, still having time to be brother, and son, even for your own parents? Is like, how do you have time to be that?
I think if people calculate how much time unnecessarily spend in entertainment,
Yep.
Video games, Netflix, binge watching, all that crap. Now, do I watch Netflix? Of course I do, but it's got to be something that builds me, that I'm actually doing some form of perception of how an entrepreneur looks at this scenario. But I'm not watching vampire, make believe, series of Western world. I don't give a crap about that type of stuff. Do I watch documentaries on the division of what's going on in our country and how important it is to get involved in the voting process and get involved in your part? Of course I do. But if it's, I used to be a big fan of horror flicks. Maybe once in a while.
Okay, guilty pleasure moment. Every once in a blue moon, I give in.
Yeah. And by the way, halfway through the scary movie, I'm laughing through the scary, like, oh, that was good. He got me. Oh, he got me. But 168 hours a week. I mean, if you just discipline yourself from A to Z, and maybe this is part of my appreciation coming out of the military, is that when I said I come back wholesome, if I can, as a Lord, I said, Lord God, just let me just get home, and I promise you, if you send me home, I'm going to take advantage of everything. I remember about to get deployed in December 2002. Iraq was going underway. They're about to deploy me, and I just started my business. And I'm like, I can't go. I'm a single dad. Who am I?
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with the doctor. I said, how's my back? Is it tweaked? Yeah, it's tweaked. I know, right? Long story, you did a couple tests. It said, I think you might create some unnecessary damage on your back, and we have to pay you unnecessarily for, So anyway, I got out of that deployment.
Sure.
You know why? And I'm glad I got out of the deployment. But here's what I told myself: I'm going to take advantage of my business every step of the way.
Yeah.
And what happened, Josh? I was washing coffee pot, and it snapped in my hands. It sliced my 3 fingers here. I rushed to the ER, and they said, "Oh no, you got some tendon sliced." I went to a hand specialist, and who's working as a medical assistant that day? One of the wives of my crew chiefs in my former unit. Of all doctors, I was supposed to write it, and she delivers me this message. I think God was talking to me. Hey, did you hear about Tammy Duckworth? Who? Yeah, my former, yeah. Who's now she runs the Department of Veterans Affairs, but she got shot down. She lost her legs.
Oh.
You hear about Cheney? You hear about this guy? You lost your buddies. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm for sure going to take advantage of this business.
Yep.
And so in that spirit, what I do today goes to honor the borrowed time that I have already, because I could have been on those. I could have been shot down. And so that's just where I come from in terms of, okay, I have an hour, it's not granted. I have a day, it's not granted. I'm going to just make the most of it. Let me just pack in as much stuff in his calendar as much as possible and play loose and have fun and be grateful all at the same time.
I for some reason, every time I think of this and a picture in my head, I see is kind of coming through the house door. You got your crown on, you hang it up on the coat rack, and you kind of have like a Mr. Rogers moment where you sit down and kind of take off the leather shoes, and then you're putting on the slippers, and just the music of Mr. Rogers in the back. I don't know. It kind of comes to my mind. All right, so you and your wife are the first board council members of your empire. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
What does that position entail? Exactly.
So there's representative in terms of internal corporate home office, okay? And there's also the 18,000 agents in the field that we also represent. So somebody has to represent the 18,000 field force because the corporate internal home office of 60 staff that we have is making decisions that benefits the 18,000.
Got
They
it.
can't make this decision unless they get input from here. So the conduit between here, between the field force, the 18,000 plus and growing field force, between our 60 plus growing internal staff is us.
Understood. Okay, and that I can only imagine is a very big responsibility. You are directly connected in and being an instrumental conduit, if you will, of passing the messaging and the flow of communication between the two that are then impacting everyone's lives, not just one side or the other. So what's it like to be in partnership with your wife?
What's with the look? That's funny.
I see. That was totally accidental, by the way. Wow. I just wore my emotions on my face. No, I'm joking. I did that on purpose. I love my wife to death, not just because she's going to possibly listen to this later and I need to have an insurance policy.
Yes,
but
which would be glad to write.
exactly. I'm like, no one better to write that except for Matt. But no, in seriousness, because we know that strip out the business side.
Yeah.
No doubt marriage is stressful.
Yeah.
Marriage has its highs, it has its lows, and everything in between. So just without, I mean, we talk about, as you mentioned, being divorced. Some of the most crucial components that play into the divorce rate are certainly finances being a big one, and the communication of finances, communication being another one. So just naturally being married is, yes, there's a lot of good, but you're day in and day out with this person. You're day in and day out, oftentimes opposite personalities, opposites attract after all. Yeah. So you're in a very tense, just naturally situation. Then you decided to go in partnership with her. So I'm curious what that's like, because I've heard from some, but I want to hear from you, and I don't want to set the stage to water down your response. I want to hear your true feelings of it. And again, your wife is probably listening to this too. So I will take out the insurance policy for you as well, and we can edit this later. But no, go ahead.
No, it's when we first started dating, with men, we tend to pick emotionally, right? Oh, she looks good. She's hot. She's cute. She's beautiful. Blah, 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 whatever. I like her hair, skin tone, the way she looks. I'm attracted to her. And then that's it.
Yep.
Coming through a divorce situation, not only did I have to, and by the way, that choice and that pick is emotional.
Yep.
Usually for most guys, they oh man, she's hot. Oh, emotional. Now I learned to choose logically. So if you incorporate the emotion, but infuse logic, saying, okay, long after sex, okay, I have to get along with her.
Yes.
We have to build a life together.
Yes.
The way to go through conflict. She has got to deal with my weird quirks. That the toilet paper goes under, not over. Toilet seat down, up. Hey.
Yes.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And so, where are my chargers in the house? Who's got my? I just put the charger right here. Now that I need it's not here. Babe, where's my charger? Oh, here it is. See what I'm talking about?
It's so true.
Yeah.
You know what? What's interesting is I found a distinct correlation between marketing in the business world and dating. The
Okay.
two, think about this. Just think about this for a second. What you talked about, know your demographic, know the audience that you're going for, right? Right? You have to know who you're going after. So if you want a good, not all of them, but you want a good Christian girl, you don't go to the strip clubs to find
Zero.
her.
Zero.
That's not where you go. You go to the church. You go where the demographic is. So
Yes.
it's the correlation with marketing and finding that person. You have to think first of who you want and who you want to spend the rest of your life with. Past
Yeah.
the honeymoon stage, past
Yeah.
the, all of, hey, you add on some pounds, she adds on some pounds, and you're looking at each other like, I don't know what I was thinking, but what brings snaps you back is like, I don't care. I love this woman.
Huh?
She's my rock. She is the balance to me. I'm crazy. Like you said, us guys, we're not usually the sharpest tools in the shed when it comes to the relationship side of
Yeah.
things. So the fact that they put up with us in the first place is just
Salute to our ladies out there.
you
Woo!
get the Medal of Honor for that one. I mean that you deserve the Pulitzer, as they would say too. So before working at PHP, you worked in venture capital industry. Tell us about your experiences there. What was the best pitch you ever heard from the venture capitalist world,
Yeah.
and what was the worst?
Uh, uh, um, uh, uh, the venture capital guy was doing was with Miller Coors because we were awarding $250,000 in terms of funding their business. And the worst one was somebody that had this scientific research on some form of food product or helping. Oh, it was helping restaurants eliminate waste from their restaurants. So therefore, they don't have such large trash costs. Okay.
Okay.
And they had this, and he built his business in the lab of Arizona State. And he wanted to raise 150. He wanted $150,000 from us. And the first question we asked is, how much of your own money is in this thing? And where's your business? Is we see Arizona State, but if the moment they change, they don't want this project here. Can you still deliver on your science? Sure. And so he didn't think it out. No, and I got zero in my mind. So what do you need 150 grand for then? You have no business plan for 150. Oh, are we financing your lifestyle? Oh, hell no. Nope, out.
Gosh, I for some reason I'm just hearing come through you is your personal friend Damon John for some reason is
Yeah.
I'm hearing that the distinct correlation and similarities between what's expressed on Shark Tank is so wait a second what I
Yeah.
had my money was on a science person or engineer. It was one of those two was my money was on your answer being related to someone in the science or engineering world where it's been well thought out from a like scientific or numbers level, but then
Yeah.
the rationale has completely been not even thought about. Like,
Yep.
oh wait, what? Huh?
Yep.
You're not going to fund a lot. I'm a super smart guy though. I mean, why wouldn't you fund that?
Yep. The best one, I'll say the best one was a guy, he invented which I resonated with being in the military. He created this ball, but it had cameras all in the ball. If you roll the ball in, you can see who's inside the room.
Oh, that's cool.
So they would sell that to SWAT. They would sell that to police departments. They would sell that to the military. I said, guys, he's that's it. I mean, I don't even got to look at the business because he had the proof of concept.
Yep.
He had the orders already in. He just needed the money to manufacture and drive down his production costs.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. Well, I see you sometimes as kind of the William Wallace of Braveheart. You're rallying the troops. You're going on your horse back and forth in front of the troops, and you're getting them pumped up, getting them energized, excited to go out there, conquer the world, the business world, to get insurance premiums, get people signed up. Let's do this. But you know what? William Wallace even needed someone to draw inspiration from. So, who's your William Wallace who gets you fired up and going into your daily battles to then carry that through to you, to then emphasize that out to your troops.
Yeah, I mean, my immediate reaction to that is my wife and my family inspire me. I mean, when kids follow sports figures, is because they see these sports figures living their dreams, right? And I want to make sure that my wife and my kids see me living my dreams, because it's going to inspire them to want to live their dreams.
Yes.
Well, so I feel I always got to take an example. Obviously, being a Chicago kid, the story. I mean, it's required in our home to have watched what you just discussed earlier, which is the Last Dance documentary.
Yep.
You cannot continue being a Sapaula if you didn't watch the Last Dance documentary. When I'm looking at my own CEO, I'm looking at my own personal mentor, Patrick Bet-David, to see the type of hours he puts into the day and the type of output that there was result in the lifestyle they're able to live, and the decisions that he can make, and the quality of life they can live. And he's a huge inspiration to me too, as well. My faith, when I see the fact that we can use our faith as a tool for bigger purposes than just our own material success. And by the way, there in Southern California, that's where I discovered my faith even more deeply, right there in South Coast Plaza, because behind South Coast Plaza off the Harbor Boulevard, there's Calvary Church.
Chapel. Yep.
And right there off of Newport Avenue and McFadden is Italian restaurant named Angie's Italian Restaurant.
Yes.
No, Angie. Yeah. So Angie Kardashian, no relation, but Angie Kardashian was recruiting us all the time to come have Thanksgiving dinner with her, and she'd end up recruiting us to go to Saddleback Church right there in Saddleback.
That's our home church. That's where we go. Rick Warren.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Full circle, man. Full circle.
And so those things.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
Oh yeah, all good, brother. I was just saying. So those are my inspirations. I think that with all the things that happen into my life, that I feel that I'm here to be a vessel, and the vessel I can be is to shine a light in the business world, which sadly, for most part, is a very dark world. And I just want to be opposite of what everybody perceives rich people to be, what they perceive people in insurance to be, what they perceive Filipinos to be, minorities, what people perceive, people that follow my same journey to be. I want them to know that there's an example of success. There's an example that you can make money ethically and legally and make a difference in the world.
I appreciate you sharing that. And my takeaway of this is it's a two-part inspiration. It's not any one individual. It's quite the opposite. It's of the physical world, it's your wife and your family and your kids. Of the spiritual world, it's God. And Amen. So you've got those two worlds that feed in and channel into one combined source, if you will, that is your inspiration for what drives you. That's what gets you up on the horse and says, we're going to do this. Or we're going to make yes, exactly. All right. Well, Matt, it's been our pleasure to have you here on Ignite Your Business radio show. And it's been a pleasure to learn more about your business and the intriguing road that really brought you to where you are and where you came from. But before we go, I do have a couple last few burning questions. Sure. And I know you're giving me the grin like, uh-oh, here we come. These are some questionable inquiries that you're about to toss at me, but not at all. But you invested, and I wanted to have you share this because when we first were talking and getting to know each other, you shared with me a story that it blew me away, had the hairs on my arm raised up, and just it really meant a lot. But there was a story about a company, an adult beverage company that you have invested into. Oh, yeah. And so I wanted you to share that story because I think it's not only the American story, the American dream, kind of just the fundamentals to it, but it also is just such a unique story.
Yeah. So the company we invested in, and that's a big reason why I do what I do, is to not only make a lot of money to create jobs, but also to invest in other businesses that also create jobs.
Right.
And so back to the pastor in the church that connected us, that's through my sister. My sister also introduced me to a young lady named Fawn Weaver. And Fawn Weaver was an investigative journalist. It's basically, if something happens to my sister in LA, right away, she's the first to respond. So that's how close my sister is with Fawn Weaver. And Fawn was doing a story on the actual real distiller of Jack Daniel's whiskey.
Mm.
Come to find out that Jack Daniel's whiskey maker was not actually Jack Daniels himself. It was actually an emancipated slave named Nearest Green. And she went there to cover the story. Said, "Hey, Jack Daniels, if it wasn't really Jack, how come you guys didn't give honor and credit to Nearest Green? He's not a co-founder, and he's got right to this as much as anybody else." Well, come to find out, Jack Daniels, because slavery was just being abolished. The 13th Amendment just got passed. He just got emancipated. And the optics of it is, would people really buy this whiskey if they knew a black man, a slave, sadly, is the partner of founder? So in the moment, so Jack Daniels said, I'll just take the lead on this one. And to give him credit, everywhere he walked in Lynchburg, Tennessee, which was the South, Nearest Green, his emancipated slave, would walk right next to him. Every time they were in town hall, every time they were taking a company photo, Uncle Nearest Green was right next to him, right? It just based on the optics of who was really behind it, it had to be, at that point, Jack Daniels. So Fawn Weaver blows up the story. New York Times, major press coverage, Smithsonian Institution changed the story to give honor and credit to Uncle Nearest Green. The distillery, Jack Daniels, you go down there, they actually changed the story and they gave honor and credit to Jack Daniels. So they honored him. Now, Fawn Weaver goes back to the distillery. Who does she still find working there? The descendants of Uncle Nearest Green.
Wow.
And so she goes, "Hey guys, well they admitted that your great uncle was the one who helped with this whole process, the African whiskey making process. He actually brought it here to Lynchburg, Tennessee, from what he learned in Africa." And we make a long story short, they said, "No, we don't want to do any lawsuits or anything like that. But however, our uncle has passed down some whiskey recipes that the world's never known, and we'd like to create our own whiskey brand." And so Fawn Weaver got together, and our family being one of them, my sister was an initial investor, to invest in this company. I purchased some shares to invest in the company. But here it is, Uncle Nearest Whiskey. It's the fastest growing whiskey company in America, and the tagline is, "The greatest whiskey maker the world never knew."
That's awesome.
Right? And
that's
so
awesome.
It's the fastest growing whiskey company in America. You can find it in Binny's, you can find it at Target, you can find it, right? It's got major distribution now, 30 some different countries. The only board of a corporation where it's multicultural, and the only CEO of a liquor company, adult beverage company in America that's ran by a black woman. So it's
incredible.
It's why we do.
I thank you for sharing that, because I think we're coming up on February being Black History Month.
Yep.
And I think it's important to point out that it's not that it should be looked at as like a wow factor, like, wow, they were able to accomplish anything. It's like, no, that's the wrong thinking. The right thinking is all communities go through hardships, some more than others, certainly, absolutely. But all communities go through hardships. And it's important to take the time to go out there and celebrate the success. Yep. Not celebrating the success as because of who you are, but it's celebrating the success to take the time to highlight a certain community at a time. Just like we just finished up with Veterans, Veterans Month. Oh, yeah. It's celebrating a group, a community that have successes, as we should celebrate all communities, and giving everyone their moment in the spotlight, no matter what that means. So I appreciate you sharing that, and I love that story. It stuck with me, and it has really been it's a heartfelt story. It's the American story. It has everything all wrapped into it, from our history as a country to where we were and where we've come. And it really highlights all of that too. The question has been eating away at me that you being a Chicagoan, I think I might be saying it wrong, but
you got it.
Okay. So going through browsing your different videos, I come across one that has you wearing a Dallas Cowboys shirt or jersey rather. Yeah. And I was very confused while I saw this. I said, no, that can't be Matt, but it's got his last name on there. it's got to be like maybe a relative. No, that looks like Matt. That
It's
talks
him.
like Matt and walks like Matt. I'm really confused. Why in the world a Dallas Cowboys jersey are you sporting?
Well, the theme of that particular meeting that we had with our leadership team was having an after party at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium. So we awarded our top guys with a jersey customized with the last name in the back, who led the last 6 months in that particular, the last 90 days in that particular leadership meeting, and that's a little bit of prize recognition. It didn't show. Now notice in the front, it didn't say Cowboys. Now, okay, yeah. It didn't say Cowboys.
Okay. Fair enough.
It did have a star. It did have a star, and we were all under the same number, which is 19, which meant 2019.
Got it. Okay. I don't know. I think if I were in your shoes, I still would have sported, the Bears jersey. I still would have just kind of like to rub it in a local territory but to each his own. So, yeah. All right. You hop into your Rolls Royce Ghost. What's your jam that you turn on? And like you roll down the windows, you roll back the top, and you let the hair down. And what's that jam? What's that tune that is your go-to jam?
It's got to be somewhere between 90s R&B.
Okay.
And 90s hip hop, Nate Dogg and Warren G just hit the East Side and the LBC, and our mission try to find the Warren G. Or Coolio, Gangsta Paradise. Come on, baby.
Coolio is so underrated. I'm sorry, but I mean, yes, he got picked up with all the kind of wacky hairdo. It was his brand. It was what made him stand out. But I mean, come on, the guy is a talent in his own right. Forget about just the visual perception. He's close to the top in my book. So I agree with you on that one. All right, so end of year gift to your wife, and you're really making me look bad. I mean, I just really making me look bad. First, it was buying a Rolls Royce for 26 bucks a month, and then you take it a step further and you get your wife a BMW X7.
Right.
All right. So what's her top jam that she's rolling down with?
Yeah, funny. My wife, because she had older siblings growing up, it'd be the same genre.
Really?
The same genre. Yeah, she knows all the same. She jams to the same stuff. Now she won't know LL Cool J back in the 80s. When I'm alone in my room, sometimes I stare at the wall. In the back of my mind, I hear my conscience call. That type of stuff. She won't know it. She's like, "What are you listening to, old man?" But yeah, her that's her jam too. So it's funny as much as we are in the car, we're also on the phone. So
yeah,
the talk time is, or the radio and those type of jams, Now, with that being said, I think I'm trading in my Rolls Royce this spring. I'm trading in for the Dawn, the Rolls Royce Dawn, because that's convertible. So, because I can't drive the Rolls Royce here in the winter anyway. So if I can't drive the Rolls Royce in the winter anyway, and I'm driving the Escalade, I need a summer car. So it's got to be the, why not?
Look, I'll take it off your hands. $24 a month. Let's call it a deal. Let's be done with it. Let's move on and let you get to yours.
Boom. Yeah, my man.
All right. What is your go-to quote? This is the one. Look, numbers, I mean, they certainly make my head hurt. But even for those of you like yourself that love numbers, it gets to a point that trust me, you as a business owner, all of us go through it. At a certain point, we hit those walls. And it's like, oh, man, why do I keep doing this? I'm burned out. Things don't seem to be going as planned. It's just one of those, as Garfield says, it's a Monday. It's like those, So you dig down deep. You got it tattooed somewhere on you that you can look, or you got it up on the wall. It's plastered somewhere big for you to be reminded of why you do what you do. And I call it the cerebral Red Bull to your brain. And it's like those paddles when if someone's, flatlining, it's like, boom, and it brings you right back what's that go-to quote for you?
By the way, it's if you have a visual, it's right above you won't be able to see it, but it's right above my board there. But it's, if you want what you've never had, you got to be willing to do what you've never done.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. That's right up there with one of my top ones that I like is from Dave Ramsey, another financial guru, is live like no one else so you can live like no one else.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's got any of those quotes that have double meaning to it. It's like, oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. So hats off to you for that one. That's right up there in those, like Ben Franklin, Abraham Lincoln quotes. That's top tier stuff right there.
Good,
All
man.
right. So last question, I promise. Last question. What is, and I think I know this answer because you've shown it now probably a good handful of 5 times at least, is what is the book that you're currently going through or just finished that you just consumed? And I will open up the availability of categories to children's book as well as audiobook. It can be it can be hardback, audio, children's book. What's the book that you just finished or you're currently in the process of wrapping up?
I just reread, I got my bookcase here, but I just reread Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. And that's a whole, Ayn Rand was a economic novelist, and she predicted a world of communism and socialism in the 50s. She said, this is going to happen in America. Well, it's happening now. And so so she predicted a lot of early stuff that she didn't like when she got kicked out of, her family got kicked out of Russia because the Communist Party took over. So Atlas Shrugged, I reread that again. I'm watching again the 3-part DVD series. Obviously, our CEO's book, Your Next 5 Moves, which is a Wall Street Journal best-selling book since August of this year. We just got done reading the 4 Agreements, and we're reading this. Go figure, I'm a Bears fan. We're reading this book for the book of the month. We're reading a book by Vince Lombardi called What It Takes to Be Number One. Damn it.
I figured it was going to be a book called Da Bears.
I know, right?
But no, it has to be Vince Lombardi, of course. Of course. All right. Well, Matt, it has been a complete pleasure. Don't go anywhere because we got some stuff we're going to talk to you here in a bit. But learn more about the work that Matt Sapaula is doing. Visit IgniteRadioshow.com and look for this episode. There you can find a recording of this episode as well as any information you may need to get in touch with him, as well as we will put up all of those books that you mentioned. We'll even put a link over to the whiskey that you put up there. We're going to put it all up.
Awesome.
We're all promoting Matt today. So I hope the information that Matt from PHP Agency shared today helped light the fuse inside of you and ends up taking your business to the next level. I'd like to thank our guests today, our production team, our engineering team, and most of all of you listening. Until next week, I'm your host, Josh Wilhelm. Have a great and successful rest of the week, everybody.